Hi, everybody. So today we're going to talk about how to pick the best fonts. So typography is probably one of the most powerful elements in graphic design. And it's more than just a means of communicating information. Fonts can define your brand's personality, it can reinforce your message, and make a lasting impact on your audience. Choosing the right font for your brand can be overwhelming, especially for beginners, but with a bit of knowledge and practice, you'll learn how to use typography to make your designs shine and really make you feel good about them. So let's break it all down. How do we choose the best fonts for your brand? How do we understand font classifications? And how do we learn about expert typography tips and explore how to pair fonts just like a pro? So first of all, let's start with font classifications and understanding the basics. Fonts are typically divided into several main areas. Each class of fonts has its own style, mood, and uniqueness in most cases. Understanding these classifications will help you make informed decisions when selecting fonts for your brand. The first form would be called serif fonts. So serif fonts are the oldest type of fonts, and they originate with the Roman alphabet. They have small decorative lines, we call them serifs, attached to the ends of the letters, giving them a classic and formal traditional feel. These fonts are often seen as trustworthy, authoritative, and elegant, which makes them the perfect use for established brands, professional brands. So common uses for serif fonts include newspapers, books, and academic writing, corporate branding for law firms, financial institutions, and luxury brands, and editorial designs that are elegant and high-end fashion. So what is the most popular serif fonts? Well, one of the most popular is Times New Roman. Times New Roman is reliable, it's highly readable, it's often used in formal documents and corporate settings. So here is a type poster, kind of about Times New Roman, very fun using Times New Roman. The next one is Georgia. Let me go back here. Here's another Times New Roman specimen poster. So the next one is Georgia. Georgia is known for its clarity both in print and on digital screens. It is a popular choice for the web. And here are two type posters, type specimens that are using Georgia. I really love the G's in Georgia. I think that's why people tend to gravitate towards it. Definitely a popular choice. And the next is Garamond. So Garamond is a sophisticated and timeless choice, frequently used in books and in editorial comments. So here we have two different type posters for Garamond, established in 1561. So it's been around a long time. And then let's talk a little bit about sans serif fonts. So sans serif fonts don't have those decorative lines, or serifs as we call them, on the end of the letters, and it gives them a cleaner, more modern look. So what's great about them? Well, they tend to feel more approachable. And here we have Andale Mana. Sometimes they're considered more minimalistic. This is Helvetica New. And of course, we know that they're definitely versatile. And this is Arial, kind of a version of Helvetica, which is why they're often called the go-to choice for brands that want to convey a sort of contemporary and cutting-edge image. So what are the most common uses for sans serif fonts? Well, we see them on websites and digital platforms due to their legibility at various screen sizes. We see them in tech companies and in startups and modern lifestyle brands, and often advertising and minimalist brand identities. So again, what are the most popular serif fonts or sans serif fonts? Well, the number one, probably most popular sans serif font is Helvetica, one of the most widely used sans serif fonts in the world. It conveys simplicity, neutrality, and professionalism. And here we can see this is a couple of two different designs of type specimen posters using Helvetica as their content. And then Helvetica kind of did some switching around in the late 1980s and came up, or mid 1980s, and came up with Helvetica Neue. So Helvetica's got a lot of different versions in the family of fonts that it is. And so here are two type specimens from Helvetica Neue, established in 1983. Helvetica or Helvetia would be the type of Switzerland, and would originally have been the thinking around the name. And definitely we've all seen the movie Helvetica, which really gives us a good understanding of where Helvetica came from and how widespread its use is. And then, of course, Arial. Arial, often used for its versatility and readability across different platforms. And here we have two different type specimens of Arial. Very fun, developed in 1982. And then there's Arial Black, which again, a very a kind of almost a display font, but it's sans serif, of course, another version of Arial. And here's a couple of type specimens for Arial Black, really beautiful. And then there's Futura. Futura is known for its geometric shapes, often used by forward-thinking brands to evoke a sense of innovation and modernity. And there we have some type specimens from Futura. Beautiful, beautiful font. Okay, the next type of classicism that we want to talk about is the script font. So script fonts mimic handwriting and calligraphy, and they can be elegant and flowing and intricate, or they can be casual and playful. It depends on the style in which the font was made. These fonts add a personal human touch to your design, but they should be used sparingly, as they can sometimes be very hard to read, and especially when it's in longer text. So you would not use a script font. Usually you would not use one in a body copy, for example. So here we have common uses for script font are wedding invitations, logos, and branding for luxury or personal items, packaging for products that aim to feel personal, tech companies, that want to show like, kind of a handmade look, headlines and logos for brands wanting to convey a sense of creativity and elegance. And so it's kind of got that like handmade feel to it. That's the way you want to think about script fonts. Popular script fonts are, one of the most popular is Lobster, a bold, casual font with a lot of personality, commonly used in logos and informal branding. And here's a little image of Lobster. Pacifico, it's lighthearted and fun. This script font is great for informal or playful brands. There it is in use. Here's another dancing script. This is very lively and friendly, often used in more creative and approachable designs. But there's a lot of them out there. All right, so let's talk about display fonts. So display fonts are kind of a catch-all title, but it's the idea of a display font is to catch attention, and typically they're used for a headline, a title, or a logo. They are highly decorative. Their styles can range from vintage to futuristic. So there's really kind of a big, broad swipe for an area. Because they are so bold, display fonts should be used sparingly to avoid overwhelming the viewer. So the common uses for display fonts are headlines and titles in print and digital media, logos for brands that want to make a bold statement, posters, packaging, and advertising campaigns where grabbing attention is key. And the font in this particular headline is Impact. So what are popular display fonts? Here we have, the first is Bibas New, a strong condensed typeface often used in advertising and posters for its impactful appearance. And here's a couple of font specimens, kind of help you out there to think about how you can use things and really push the idea of good typography. Another is Impact. Impact is known for its boldness and straightforward design. Very popular font, frequently used in print ads and memes. And here we have two type specimen posters using Impact. Right? I mean, completely different designs, but beautiful. Okay, and then another area that we want to talk about is they're called monospace fonts. So monospace fonts give every character the same amount of space. They were originally used in typewriters and are now commonly seen in coding environments. These fonts provide a sense of stability and uniformity, making them great for brands that want to evoke a tech feel or a utilitarian feel. So common uses for monospace fonts are coding and tech related design projects, branding for tech companies or products that want to emphasize precision and order, retro or vintage design projects that want to evoke a typewriter feel. So popular monospace fonts, first one would be Courier New, or Courier, Courier is still out there. It's designed as a typewriter face for IBM. Courier was drawn by Adrian Frutiger for IBM's Selectric series, a typical fixed pitch design, monotone in weight, and slab design and concept. So notice how all the letters, like everything's the same. It's used to emulate typewriter output for reports, tabular work, and technical documentation. And the Courier New, again, is just a classic updated version of that style with sort of the associated with old school look. Another is called Roboto Mono. Roboto Mono is a highly legible monospace font, commonly used in coding and tech-related designs. And again, it's really liked by font developers for its readability and its clarity. And last but not least, Source Code Pro is for coders. It's a widely used font among developers for its readability and clarity, and it gives us that old school of, kind of the very first computers with their horrible green lights that were terrible on our eyes. So that kind of sums it up for all the different classifications. So let's take a little trip into font pairing. So what are tips that we can use for font pairing? So first of all, when you're pairing fonts, you want to think about a contrast between serif fonts and sans serif fonts. Serif fonts have small decorative lines or embellishments at the ends of the characters, while sans serif fonts do not, and they include do not include any decorative lines. A classic example of a serif font, of course, is Times New Roman. A classic example of a sans serif font is Helvetica. And so here we have an image of a design for a brand, and there we can see the classic kind of 3 different fonts used, and we see sort of the genuinely handicrafted, and that's called small caps, with the New York City in a script font, and then the Brooklyn Soap Company in a sans serif display font, right? So a nice combination of 3 different fonts working very well together. So we have the serif, the sans serif, and the script. All right. Headline versus body font. Preferably choose a sans serif headline and a serif font for the body text. That's because it's believed that serif fonts actually are easier to read than sans serif fonts. So fonts that have that little end, that little tip on the end of the letter, actually kind of directs you. It's like a cursive. It directs you to the next letter, so it makes reading faster. This pairing works because there is high contrast. It is also a good match between classic and modern. Start with your preferred heading, then pair it with a few body fonts to see what you like best. So here we have an example And there's our headline in sans serif, our subheading in a type of script font, and then our body copy in a I believe that's I think it's Times New Roman, and it's a serif font, so you can see the little edges on the like the end of the Y on the T's, and so on. Okay. So when you want to pair a font, you want to think about the personality of the font. Consider the mood you wish to achieve with the final project. If it's a formal occasion or invitation, then flourishy fonts tend to work well, but they won't work on a sales announcement or, something that you want to make a quick impact with. Instead, choose a more bold font for that. So there's a great site here, and it's Digital Synopsis. And if we click on that, it takes us right to, the website. And here we are, Digital Synopsis, and what different types of fonts mean and how to use them. And it's all about font psychology. So I really like this because it tells you, just what the personality of the different fonts might be. So, here we have traditional Baskerville, sophisticated Didot, reliable, practical Garamond, Georgia Times. Here's sans serifs, and it kind of breaks it down. And there's a lot of, like, this one's a really nice image too of just sort of how it breaks everything down. So definitely take a look at this website, Digital Synopsis. I think it's really helpful. Okay. And hopefully I can get back to my PowerPoint. All right. And then check that you have all the elements that you need before choosing a font. Check that all the letters and characters you wish to use come with that font, because that isn't always the case. So when a font designer creates a font, there might be certain things that aren't there. They might not have all the capital letters, or they might, and then you'll end up with some weird like character instead of the capital letter that you want. So you really got to look. And that happens especially in display fonts like grunge fonts and things like that. You're going to find that it doesn't have everything. And then last but not least, make sure it's in the correct language, that you get everything in the language that you need. So if it needs umlautens or tildes or any of those things, that they have those characters in the font. Okay. And then check for legibility. So what's the most important thing that you're doing? You're trying to communicate. So if you can't read it, you can't communicate. So look at your font choices from a distance and see, do they really work? Do they work in different sizes, or are they hard to read? Are they legible? Because you really, and then when they're paired together, do they like seem weird? Do they not work together? So poor readability is not a good thing. And so here I've got a little example of poor readability. So here we have good legibility, good readability, more comfortable to read, poor legibility, poor readability, less comfortable to read. So these are things that's called a flayed serif. And that's kind of like an Old West kind of look, like, but yeah, a fun font for sure, but is it readable? And how much can you use it? Not very much. Okay, and then don't forget about the license. Fonts are licensed. So if you haven't paid for the font, you want to use it for somebody professionally, they could end up in trouble. So you want to make sure that your font is licensed, or use a font in Easel where it's approved and ready to go. There's places where they'll tell you if the font is usable or not usable. So that's definitely something you need to think about. And then be inspired. Look at different font combinations that you see. And here's some Easel templates that I think you might enjoy. And again, you can see here all the different things. They have drag and drop designs where you can kind of come in and just try to play with different designs. And so I really encourage you to go to these websites and take a look at all these different ways that you can work with this particular, templates. And there you can see there's all kinds of stuff. So definitely look at those and then think about, where you're going to go next with it. Okay. And then what are some secrets that designers use to make their typography stand out? So, I mean, we've been talking about this forever, but I want to bring it back. Designers use hierarchy. Hierarchy, number one key. That's why the first big project you had was all about hierarchy. So designers use font size, weight, and color to create a visual hierarchy that leads the viewer eye through the design. Headings are typically larger and bolder, drawing attention first, while smaller fonts are used for supporting details. Establishing hierarchy ensures that your message is clear and easy to follow. Contrast creates impact. So when you have black against white, it creates an impact. There's some designers that say you don't read the words, you read the space around the word, which I think is so interesting. So combining contrasting fonts such as bold sans serif with a delicate serif can help to make the typography more engaging and readable. Contrast can also be achieved by playing with font size, with the weight, and with the color of the font to emphasize the most important elements of the design. So white space. White space is so powerful. The more white space you have, the more important whatever you put in that white space is. All you have to do is look at the old Apple ads with the computers or the iPhones, and you would see all this white space and then the computer right in the center. And it was like, do you need to ask? This is it. This is the best computer you're ever going to own. And people bought it. They believe it. I mean, it's one of the largest companies in the world. Giving your typography room to breathe with plenty of white space, the empty areas around and between text or other design elements prevents a feeling of clutter and ensures that your message stands out. Don't be afraid to leave space around your fonts, and it creates focus and it creates balance. So those are really important things to remember. And last but not least, look for fonts that evoke emotions. The font you choose can set the emotional tone for the feeling of your design. For example, a playful script can evoke feelings of joy and creativity, while a clean sans serif font might convey modernity and professionalism. Match your font to the mood you want your brand to communicate. You know, just because you want to talk about dogs doesn't mean your font has to bark. And there are fonts out there that have like little dog tails, or there's Christmas fonts that have, snow on them and things like that. I mean, do you really want to use those? Maybe, I guess, but they're more like clip art. So, my suggestion to you is no, you don't want to use those, but you do want to use fonts that give a feeling. You don't want to use silly little fonts unless it's a silly little thing that you're doing. But if you're really working with real clients and you want to give them a sense of professionalism, you really want to think hard about what you're doing there. So, what questions do you need to ask before you start a design project? Before you jump into selecting fonts for any design project, you need to take time to ask yourself a few critical questions. And hopefully this guides you your typography choices and ensures that your overall design goals will work. So again, Ultimate Pairing Guide, go to Easel. There's a whole really nice area in here that talks about, how to pair fonts. And so we can click in there really quickly. And there we can see it's a different part of the website. And there we can look at all these questions about how to pair fonts and what goes with what. And this is just a really good way for you to think about, how to pair things and what really works. So again, headline versus body copy, contrast serifs versus sans serif. Think about the personality of the font and check that you have all the elements before choosing a font. All of these things that we just got done talking about. And here we can see some just nice little design elements and how they use them. So I hope this helps you start to open up a little bit more about what it takes to be able to create a good pairing of a font, and sort of some rules of thumb to go by, and some support materials that are out there that you can go and look at to help you when you're in that predicament. So until next time.